It's all about the future. It's all about making things better for our community.
Manitoba Hydro, going into the discussions, had come to a conclusion that the local residents, in this case NCN, had to be better off after the project than they were before, and that partnership seemed to be one of the practical ways of achieving that.
Partnership and economic development is absolutely crucial in the future. So that's why our input is very important, and Hydro gave us that opportunity.
We wanted to be adamant in terms of having a discussion on Wuskwatim. We wanted to be able to negotiate ahead of time before anything happened.
Wuskwatim Generating Station, 200 megawatts of clean, renewable hydroelectricity. As hydro projects go, Wuskwatim isn't large or technically unique, but it is revolutionary in its approach to development. Wuskwatim is located on the Burntwood River in northern Manitoba, 45 kilometers southwest of the city of Thompson, and 35 kilometers southeast of the community of Nelson House, home of the Nissequoyasee Cree Nation, or NCN. The project lies in NCN's traditional territory, a region that has seen the effects of hydro development before. In the late 60s and early 70s, Manitoba Hydro began building large generating stations on the Nelson River in northern Manitoba. Part of the plan included the diversion of the Churchill River into the Nelson through a series of control structures and diversion channels. The main objective was to increase the flow of water in the Nelson for power production. But as the water backed up on the Churchill and flowed into the Rat and Burntwood rivers on its way to the Nelson, the higher water levels impacted the people living along the banks of those waterways, including the Nissequoyasee Cree.
In the past, hydro was really a sensitive thing, a real, I guess, not acceptable name in our community because of what happened in the past. We talk about Churchill River diversion, and you know, people are scarred, are wounded, are hurt by it, and especially elders.
I know the elders were the ones that were impacted the most, and they were very vehemently opposed. They lived a traditional form of life. They fished, they trapped, and suddenly all of this affected them. And so they were very hurt. And a lot of the people, the elders that passed on, never forgave that.
Manitoba Hydro signed the Northern Flood Agreement with 5 communities affected by Northern Hydro development, including Nelson House, in 1977. Despite compensation for the effects of the Churchill River diversion, trust issues between the community and Manitoba Hydro persisted, making full implementation of the agreement difficult to achieve. In an effort to fully and fairly implement the terms of the Northern Flood Agreement, Manitoba Hydro and the Nissequoyasee Cree negotiated a comprehensive implementation agreement in 1996.
Included in that was a requirement that we and NCN sit down and discuss any new development in their area a long time before we actually got serious about doing it, and a reasonable expectation that we'd come to an agreement on any adverse effects prior to making a commitment to build it.
In those discussions, that was around 1999, we were talking about them getting benefits from the project, and so then we decided to explore the possibility of them not just getting benefits, but them to also be a partner and a co-owner.
Sat down with Mr. Brennan at that time, and you know, he says, what about this, you know, a partnership in the hydro project, namely Wuskwatim. I said, okay, well, we can look at it. And you know, I took that news home. And that's really how it really started, in a simple gesture that, you know.
But the initial discussions and subsequent negotiations that led to the partnership were anything but simple.
Neither us nor NCN had ever negotiated such an agreement before. You can imagine that we had a lot of distrust and history to overcome with the First Nation people.
Well, we brought it back to the to Chief and Council for their consideration, and throughout the consultation process, we saw an opportunity for our people. I know the elders had really issues about going to a partnership with Manitoba Hydro because of their past relationship.
It took quite a while to work through that, for them to trust that we actually were trying to operate in a new manner, in a new mode, and be responsible and accommodating to their needs and objectives.
Getting an agreement both sides could live with was one thing, but communicating the ongoing negotiations and the final agreement to the community as a whole was quite another. The Wuskwatim Project Development Agreement, or PDA, is a complex legal document. The challenge for NCN negotiators, Chief and Council, was how to make that document easy to understand, not just in English, but also in Cree, so that NCN citizens could vote on whether or not to accept the agreement.
We had to prepare because it was through a referendum, and for us it's you have to have 51% of the people vote, and you have to have 51% agree. We had to explain the process to the people, as we went. And when you think about some of the financial terms that in the text, right, in accounting and stuff, there's no Cree word for a lot of them. It was a difficult task.
After months of public meetings and discussion in the community, the Project Development Agreement was ratified by NCN in 2006 and signed in June of that year, clearing the way for the creation of the Wuskwatim Power Limited Partnership.
The Wuskwatim Power Partnership is a means, a vehicle for NCN and Manitoba Hydro to collaborate together to develop Wuskwatim generation as a project together. The structure of it is a partnership. It's what's called a limited liability partnership, where both Manitoba Hydro and NCN are on the board of the partnership, and we have committees that we are jointly on, and NCN will own up to 1/3 of the project, and Manitoba Hydro owns the rest.
The partnership itself is a very small company, and the arrangement that we have is that Manitoba Hydro has a contract with the partnership to firstly build the project, secondly to operate it, thirdly to buy the electricity from it, and do all the things that are necessary to run a large industrial project.
As far as we know, this is the first example of a major hydro project, and by major I mean a large one, 100 megawatts or more, in the world, where there was a local indigenous population who partnered in the full sense of partnership with a developer on the project.
Most industries have never taken the time to come and knock on our doors. Hydro stands out in that area. They stepped up to the plate, and we've actually created that relationship and that working relationship, to make it possible. And in order to go forward, I think we need to do that with all other industries.
The design agreed to under the development agreement was a low-head 200 megawatt plant with 3 generators, a 3-bay spillway, extensive environmental protections and mitigation measures, and only 1/2 of 1 square kilometer of flooding. For NCN, taking an ownership position in the project was not the only benefit of the development agreement. Employment and training were also key components.
One of our objectives throughout the project has been to utilize the skill sets that are available in NCN to the greatest extent possible, and also use the project for them to improve their own skill sets. So there's a fairly extensive pre-project training program, a preferential employment program at the site for qualified people.
We knew that going in that the jobs were temporary. the training was going to last. It was going to be beneficial to the people that were trained. So people understand it's not about the short term, it's about the longer term.
Pre-project training was offered through the Hydro Northern Training and Employment Initiative. As part of the initiative, the Etuscowan Training and Employment Center, known as ATEC, was built in Nelson House to provide training to NCN citizens and others. The goal was to maximize Aboriginal employment on the Wuskwatim project and future projects planned for northern Manitoba. Almost 400 NCN citizens received training through the initiative, including training at ATEC and on-the-job training on the project itself. Another major component of the development agreement was ensuring that Ethanisuan, the traditional knowledge and wisdom of the Nissequoiasi Cree people, would be used together with Western science during the environmental monitoring and assessment of the project. Regular Ethanisuan tours conducted by NCN elders, youth, and other citizens throughout the life of the project helped ensure that traditional values were respected and reflected as Wuskwatim moved forward.
We look at the changes in the land and also the environment and also the fish. There's the culverts, are they up high enough? Is there any beaver activity there? And things like that what we're checking on. And animal activity, that the project chases the animals away. And also we try to teach these young people everything about the Inissuan, like the environment and the changes in that. In my time, what our people used to do is they used to teach us, we used to pass down their knowledge to us, and that's what we're trying to do to our young people.
They're trying to understand our problems, and we try and combine with their problems with us, so it doesn't there's no two problems on each side. We try and get in between. They help us, and we try and help them as best as we can.
Ethanisuan played a major role in determining the route of the 48-kilometer access road, as well as the transmission lines that carry Wuskwatim's electricity to the Manitoba hydro grid. Construction of the all-weather access road began in August 2006. Leading from Provincial Road 391 to the site of the station, the access road crossed 10 streams along its route. Extensive environmental protections at these locations, designed to minimize erosion and the effects of the road on fish habitat, were incorporated into each stream crossing. Construction of the access road continued throughout 2007. An NCN joint venture company played a major role in road construction, providing both labor and equipment required for the project. Other early construction activities included development of the various camps needed to house and feed Wuskwatim's workers. This included the main 800-person camp and associated infrastructure. The main camp featured bunkhouses, a dining hall capable of serving over 1,000 meals per day, fully equipped recreation center, sports fields, and water and sewage treatment facilities. The Wuskwatim Cultural Education and Counseling Center, completed in 2008, was home to Wuskwatim's unique cultural awareness program. For the first time on a Northern Hydro project, employees coming to the job site had to go through a cultural awareness orientation session before starting work.
The cultural awareness is basically creating an awareness for mostly the visitors that have come in from different areas with a diversity of backgrounds and cultures, to create an awareness of honoring each other, their beliefs, their values, their way of life, but also for them to understand that the Wuskwatim area is actually very sacred, and that there is a culture here that requires a lot of acknowledgement and respect, done by and through the ceremonial way of who we are as a people.
Progress on Wuskwatim accelerated through the construction season as crews prepared for the start of concrete work in the spring of 2009.
The first 2.5 years, as you know, has been all of the infrastructure getting completed and really getting ready, getting all the facilities ready for the general civil contractor to start his work. We've completed all of the overburden and rock excavation on the project. And as you can see from the powerhouse excavation behind us and the spillway excavation to the north of us, there's been over 1 million cubic meters of material excavated and stockpiled.
Excavating overburden and rock involved drilling thousands of blast holes throughout the spillway, powerhouse, and service bay areas. Loading each blast hole with liquid explosives and blasting caps. Then setting off the explosives in a carefully coordinated blast. Blasted rock was hauled to designated fill areas or stockpiled and crushed into aggregate for use in the concrete needed to build the powerhouse and spillway structures. In total, more than 1.5 million cubic meters of materials were excavated to prepare the generating station site. The O'Connell-Nielsen EBC Consortium, known as ONE, was awarded the general civil contract for Wuskwatim. Installation of reinforcing steel or rebar and placement of concrete used to build the station's structures began in the spring of 2009 with the first concrete pour on the spillway. An on-site batch plant produced the 120,000 cubic meters of concrete required by the project. A fleet of trucks ferried concrete to the site, where it was placed using concrete pumps. Wooden forms built in pieces off-site were moved into position and assembled, allowing crews to place the concrete required to build the draft tubes and scroll cases. By late 2009, the majority of structures were taking shape and a major construction milestone was reached with the installation of the 275-ton overhead powerhouse crane. The crane's 22.8-meter-long bridge beams were slowly moved to the service bay by truck. Two mobile cranes hoisted the beams into position onto the crane rails high above the service bay floor. Workers then installed the wiring, motors, hoists, and other components needed to get the crane into service. As construction moved forward, Wuskwatim's environmental team continued to perform a wide range of testing and monitoring to ensure that the project's impact on the natural environment would be as small as planned.
We have environmental protection plans that were developed prior to the start of the construction, and it outlines all the environmental monitoring that would take place. And then it was developed in cooperatively with a partnership with NCN. NCN had an input into how the monitoring would take place. So I think that is one of the special things about this project, that NCN was a key player in developing these environmental protection plans.
The year 2010 saw a shift in construction on the project as crews finished placing the concrete required to complete the station's intake and tail race structures. This represented the last major exterior concrete work required on the project. Other activities included assembly and installation of components needed to operate the station's 3 massive spillway gates and the start of work on the powerhouse's permanent cladding and roof. Inside the powerhouse, activity ramped up as workers finalized the placement of reinforcing steel and concrete in preparation for the installation of Wuskwatim's 3 generating units. A major construction milestone was reached in August 2010 when crews finally closed off the natural flow of the Burntwood River at Taskinagup Falls.
About a week ago, we began the process of opening the spillway gates and initiating flow through the spillway and creating that alternate path for the flow of the river that lets us proceed with the process of building this Stage 2 cofferdam on the south side of the river. River closure is a major milestone because it's the first point in time when all of the flow of the river is through our structures that are part of the project. The equipment behind us is knitting the rock together at the edge of the cofferdam, at the leading edge, to make sure that we begin to effectively pinch off the flow of water over Taskinagap Falls and direct the rest of the water through our spillway.
For the first time on a Northern Hydro project, ceremonies were held at key construction milestones. These ceremonies, organized by Wuskwatim's cross-cultural team, were designed to pay respect to the land and mitigate the effect of the project on the environment. To mark the river closure, a large ceremony was held at the site, attended by NCN citizens, elders, band leaders, and Manitoba Hydro and partnership staff. The event recognized the important role Taskinagap Falls has played in the history of the NCN people and the new way that the waters may help provide for NCN in the future. With concrete and major civil work essentially complete, the focus at Wuskwatim moved onto the installation of the station's 3 turbine generators, along with the various control systems needed to operate them. By spring 2012, assembly of the first generator was complete and commissioning underway. Extensive testing of each generator's electrical, mechanical, and control systems was required before the unit could be placed into service. In June 2012, electricity from Wuskwatim flowed into Manitoba Hydro's transmission grid as the station's first generator went online. The remaining 2 generators went online in August and October. By 2013, construction at Wuskwatim was complete. But environmental rehabilitation of the site will continue. To compensate for lost fish habitat, native cattails and shoreline vegetation were transplanted to new locations along the shoreline. Boulder gardens designed to provide spawning grounds for fish were also created in the Wuskwatim forebay. Borrow pits, which provided gravel and sand for the project, have been graded and replanted with native tree species. Additional trees have been planted throughout the site, along old access roads and campsites, to compensate for areas taken up by the project and its infrastructure. Other areas disturbed by construction activities are being graded, revegetated, and returned as closely as possible to their natural state. Monitoring of Wuskwatim will continue into the future to ensure the project has no unintended impacts on the environment. Wuskwatim represents a new model for hydroelectric development in Manitoba's north. A new way forward that respects not only the natural environment, but also people and cultures. The partnership between Nisitchawayasi and Manitoba Hydro ensures that those affected by the development have a stake in the project, securing long-term benefits for their community and people.
It's going to benefit the future generation in the long run. Like, we probably never see it as elders that are here, but it's going to benefit our children and grandchildren and children to come.
I think people are starting to open their eyes on the resources that are available to us in a modern way and how we can utilize them. I mean, this is one of the ways that I believe that our nation can be prosperous and continue to move forward.
I think at the end of the day, it'll be fantastic for future generations. Just love to see that. You know, if I had a chance, if I live long enough, maybe I will.